Hey folks, how's it going? Over this video, we will create an agent that does this sort of social media analysis. You can see we were able to get the executive summary of my handle, which is Goyashi, the mentions across different platforms, Twitter, and then the hashtags used, and then sentiment analysis based on top 5 social media mentions, right? And then recommendations for improvement, key insights, and also the conclusion about the profile. All of this in this video itself, you will need some understanding with respect to how to set up CrewAI, and all of that is also taken care of. I've given you resources for literally everything you will need. So let's jump right into the video. Hey folks, how's it going? Over this video, I'm going to help you create a social media agent that can effectively take in an influencer or a brand name and do the research on Google with respect to what people are saying about that brand or influencer per se. It's going to be a very simple agent, and it's an extension to the AI agents free course that we've been doing on YouTube, where we take a problem statement from a startup and then we try to create an agent to automate something like that. Now in this video, it's going to be a very simple agent who will monitor our social media handles and give us feedback with respect to sentiments and what people are thinking about the brand or the influencer per se in general. You can see I'm not on my usual setup. We've been making some changes with respect to the background. We've been adding some lights, so you see some yellow lights on my face, and then you also probably see that I have a better camera here right now. So a bunch of different things I'm still trying to get used to with respect to the proper studio and setup per se, but promise the content will continue to be like the top notch, like it has always been. So if you're new to this channel, please feel free to subscribe. Otherwise, let's just jump right in agent creation process now, right? So the very first thing we need to do, and if you have not worked with me building AI agents before, go through my CrewAI course. If you don't know anything about agents or what requirements you need or what kind of setup you need in order to start building agents, imperative for you to take that course so that you can get the basic setup done. And then, once you come back to courses or, videos like these, things will become way more clear and easier for you. So go through those videos if you have not already gone through those videos. What we usually do is we don't do a lot of debugging over the call because that kind of confuses the people who are consuming this content. So I've already kind of made an agent that does this work for me, and I'm just going to walk you through the code and give you complete access to the code per se. The very first thing we need to do is get in our requirements, where we need the OS for manipulating the data. We need the dot environment to get our OpenAI API key, which is something that we will need in here. And then we will need access to Search Console API as well, or the Serper Dev Tool, which we also kind of got access to in the previous video, the part 1 of this series per se. And then we need agent tasks and crews, and then OpenAI obviously for getting responses. So anyways, once you have all of these tools in here, now we need to load the environment file. So for that, we do load.env, which will allow us to access our OpenAI API key from the .environment file that we've created. Again, all of this, if all of this is not clear, it would make sense if you go through the initial setup once and the very, very high level with respect to what is CrewAI and how these agents work. We also have to, by the way, set up an environment where you will install all of these requirements, and all of these things will be covered in part 1. For the sake of people who are watching this series, I don't want to repeat myself. So if you're new, feel free to start from the first video itself. So now we will import the OpenAI API key and the Serper Dev key. Again, this is a super simple setup, and we do it for almost all the videos that we work with here. Actually, one of the things that I want to do here is that I want to enable my users to do both or use both the open source models like Llama 3.1 and then obviously the closed source models like GPT 3.5 or GPT 4o mini if they want to. So for that, what we will do is we will go ahead and remove the OpenAI API key from in here, and then we will also change the import statement. So if you go to main.py, you would notice that we did this exact same thing here. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to go to main.py. I'm going to remove this import statement and I'm going to do this, where we now import chat OpenAI and then Ollama, which are the updated libraries for us to use in this project. Now, once we have the environment set up, what we need to do is we need to initialize the search tool. Search tool is basically a way for us to create a tool that our agent will use in order to give us relevant data. So let's say if we want it to search on Google for X amount of things, then it needs to have access to that tool. Think of it like you doing research. Can you do research without using tools like Google? Yes, you can read books or you can go to internet and find something. And that's exactly what tools mean. You use something external in order to get the data that LLMs typically would not have. So what we will do is we will use or initialize the search tool, which we will then assign to an agent in a little bit. So the search tool is created. Now we need to create an LLM. LLM is essentially a way for us to use the brains for the agent. So agents are basically like processes. There's agent 1, agent 2, they talk to each other. But if there is no LLM, which is essentially their brain, these agents are inoperational. So we need to assign LLM to each of these agents such that they have their own specific brains and background stories and so on and so forth, such that when they're interacting with each other, they know the backstory of the agents per se. So we need to initialize the agent, but one thing different that I've done, this could obviously be simpler, but I've gone ahead and I've given use GPT as variable such that if use GPT is true, then we will use OpenAI. If it's false, then we will use the Llama 3.1 model. And how will we know if it's true or false? We as users will pass that to the application or the agent per se. So now let's go ahead and create our agent. So I'm going to define a function where we create agents which has a brand name, which is something that we'll need to pass to the agent. So if the researcher needs to do research, it needs to know the brand name of the product to do research on. So we will need to pass that as a variable. And the second thing we need to pass is the LLM. Which LLM should that agent use? Should it use the GPT-4o mini or should it use Llama 3.1? So for some agents, you would want to use Llama 3.1 because it's cheaper and maybe you don't need any creative tasks. You just need basic summary. But if you want to write like a detailed essay, then maybe you want to use Claude 3.5. So you can dynamically assign different LLMs to different agents. We need 2 more agents here. 1 agent, or in fact 3 more agents here. Let me add all of those and explain those to you. Okay, so there's the first agent, which is the researcher agent, and the role of the researcher agent is to gather information about brand name from various sources, and then backstory is that he's an expert researcher with a knack for finding relevant information quickly. The second agent we need is the social media monitor, but before that, let's just kind of go through these values as well. Verbose true will basically tell the agent that whatever it does, it needs to show us in the terminal here, so we know what it's doing. And then there's the allow delegation, where we want this agent to delegate to some other agent, meaning after the research is done, it will tell the agent to, let's say, give me something else, right? But we don't want this agent to do that. We want some other agent to do that. But I think in general, we have not allowed delegation for any of the agents for now. So the next thing we need is the tool, so which this agent should have access to search tool such that it can do research on Google. And then the LLM is the LLM that we pass for this specific agent. Social media monitor, the goal of this agent is to monitor social media mentions for a specific brand name or an influencer. You're an experienced social media analyst with keen eyes for trends and mentions. Again, I'm creating a very, very high level framework for the agents. In case you really want to work on a project like this, you can basically take this code and detail it out a little bit more and then build whatever you want on top of this. Like I said, all of this is available on GitHub. So I will put the link to the repo in the comments or the description and you can start using those as well. So the third agent we would need in this specific piece of code is the sentiment analyzer. Once the researcher gets the data and the monitor kind of analyzes the data, we need another agent who will analyze the sentiment from the extracted data. So you're an expert in NLP and sentiment analysis. Analyze the sentiment of social media mentions about, let's say, a brand name. So it will give us answer with respect to positive, negative, and so on and so forth. And then finally, the report generator who will take all of these details and create the final report for us. And then once we've created all of these agents, we need to export these agents. So researcher, social media monitor, sentiment analyzer, and report generator. Right now, the LLM is going to be same for all of these agents because we've defined one function where we are passing the same value for all of the agents. So that's not going to be very different, right? You can obviously customize it to be a little more different, but for now, I'm going to keep it simple. And like I said, this is going to be the framework for you to use and build agents from on top of this. Now that we have agents created, what we need for each of these agents are their tasks. So as you as a marketing manager are an agent, you will have specific tasks, right? Similarly, when you create an agent using CrewAI, you need to assign them tasks and tools. Tools we've already assigned, but we need to now assign the tasks for these agents. We've already created a boilerplate set of tasks. I'm just going to add those here and explain why I've created these tasks. Like I said, the reason why I'm just putting content here is because a lot of this is repetitive. And if I go ahead and create all of this manually, you will spend way more time for the same amount of knowledge you're getting right now by, me giving you an understanding with respect to what these tasks basically mean. So we will need 4 tasks. The research task, obviously, The goal is to research the brand name and provide summary of their presence online. The second task is the monitoring task, where the goal is to monitor the social media platforms for brand name in the last 24 hours, provide the summary of the mentions, and then obviously the sentiment analysis and report generation task. Now imagine I would have typed all of this for you in here. Obviously we are all using tools in order to kind of get this code from somewhere. So there's no point in saying that I wrote all of this originally myself, but again, I can run this and make changes and after I understand the framework of the code per se. And that's what I'm trying to do here. You just need to understand how agents look, and then you can create any sort of agents that you'd want. All right, so then this define function accepts two things: the brand name, which is the influencer on the brand name that the user or me or I will pass, and then the second thing is the agents. Agents is basically which task is this, which agent is this task assigned to. So agent 0 would basically mean this one. Agent 1 is this, 2, and then 3. In the language of arrays or lists, the first item is number 0 and not 1. So we'll create 4 tasks for 4 agents, right? In very simple sense, that's what we will do. And then what we need to do is put all of these agents into a crew, which is the essence of CrewAI per se, where you pass the brand name and use GPT true or false, and then we create a crew based on the agents, tasks, and the verbose is equal to true, which will, I think, allow us to log the data. If you press command or control and hover on top of this, then you'll be able to find all the functions or things that you can pass to the agent. So if you don't understand certain things, like let's say in this case verbose, then it just indicates the verbosity level for logging during execution, right? So you can run what any of these functions mean, and then you can also add new functions depending on what you would want to add. So you also have options like memory, which will maintain some understanding of the agent, and when it is executing something, it will have some knowledge with respect to what it executed before. All of these things also you can get from, or all of these things you can also pass to the agents. Anyways, so this is our final function, and now we need to define a name function in order to run this. Name function basically will start the execution of the Python code, and then it should look something like this, right? So it will have the name, which is the main function, and then print welcome to the social media monitoring queue. Use GPT will basically give us yes or no with respect to if you want to use GPT for this. If you say yes, then it's going to use GPT. And then second is the input for enter the brand or influence you want to do research. You will put the influencer or research name, and then result is going to be after you run the whole social media monitoring function, which will also use create LLM, which is our first function. It will use the create agents, which is our second function. It will use create tasks, which is our third function, and then run the crew based on all of these things. So it will pass the LLM to the agent and the brand name. It will pass the LLM to the, it will pass the brand name to agent, the tasks and the agents along with the brand name. And then that is how the crew execution will essentially start. So now that we have all of these things that we need, what we can do is we can click on the run button here or run Python file here. I'm fairly confident that there should be some sort of error when I run this because I'm running this for the very first time. But let's just see if we are able to run it on the first go itself. Fingers crossed. So let's just click on the play button here, and then you can see the execution has started. So right now there is no issue in the import statement, which is why you see something like this, where it says that there have been certain changes in the new version of CrewAI. So anyways, it's asking, do you want to use GPT for this? We will say yes. And then I'm going to say go Yashi, right, for research, which is my own handle for multiple social media platforms. So that also brings me to the point, if you want Gen AI based content, real hands-on content, then this is where you get. So there's an error, and I already know what this error is. It says a bunch of different things, but I know that there is something called expected format. If I open this and I look for expected format, you can see this is what we need to pass for all the tasks. And I think I missed that. Yes. So I missed that, and I'm going to add this. This is in the new version of CrewAI. We need to pass this. I missed passing this. Or you know what? I'm going to use Claude to just generate expected format for each of these agents. So I don't have to do this manually because this is just a template. So we'll wait a few seconds until Claude generates these things, and then I'm going to be putting that here, and then we'll start the execution. So again, if you're interested in deep diving in CrewAI, I have a course which you can take, but if you don't want to take a course, this is great piece of content as well. You can learn things from my free masterclass on YouTube. You can learn things from my own standalone videos on creating these agents on YouTube. But if you want proper guided knowledge, then maybe the course is the way to go. But either ways, let's continue building our agent. And I think Claude was able to generate the task for us. Okay, I'm going to copy this specific statement. Some of these things, obviously, you can write yourself down, and when you're actually building products on top of these things, you should do it yourself. But because right now I don't need to do this, and this is just a template, I'm just going to use Claude for it. The other thing that some of you might also ask is, where do you get these keys, right? For these keys, you need to go to serper.dev, and for the second key, OpenAI API account, you need to go inside your OpenAI API account to get the key. It's pretty straightforward if you watched my previous videos. So anyways, let's just go ahead and run this now that we've added the expected format, and you can see the execution is relatively faster now. That's because the first time you run, it takes some time to build it from scratch, but the next time you run, it uses the cache to run the programs, so it's relatively fast. So we've entered the yes for GPT. I think my key is expired, so I'll need to get the new one. But for brand name, I'm typing Goyashi, and then I'm going to put enter. So it still shows some error. I'm not 100% sure what the error is. Let me just quickly take a look at this. Okay, so the error seems to be the fact that we passed this as true. This needs to be true or false, not true, right? Now the error should be resolved, and let's try running this. Hopefully I don't have to debug this again. So if you actually hover over this, hover over the crew button here, and you go to verbose, and you will see it says Boolean while I passed an integer, so that's why it showed an error. Anyways, let's do yes, and then do again Goyashi, and then let's run the execution now, and you can see it's running. So unless my OpenAI API key has expired or my Serper Dev credits are out of credits, this should work as expected. So let's see how the results look like. You can see monitor social media platforms for mentions about Goyashi, categorize them as positive or neutral. Monitor social media platform, provide a summary. So, okay, the first agent task was to research. The second agent task was to monitor social media platforms. The third agent task was to analyze. The fourth agent task was to generate a summary. And agent stopped due to iteration limit or time limit. So it didn't work. So maybe one of my keys has expired, or the OpenAI API key is not working. So let me just quickly look at my Serper Dev key. I'm going to pause for a bit so you don't see the key. So apparently the keys that I was using, the OpenAI one was expired, and I had to add a new key in order to now make this work. So now that I've added the new key, let's go ahead and try running this again. Right, so you can also do this via Ollama if you have the Ollama setup done, and that's also something that you will learn in the CrewAI masterclass tutorial. In case you want to run this crew using Ollama, you can do that. So now we'll go ahead and do yes again, and let's hope this time it works as expected. Last time around we weren't doing anything because the key was not working, but this time I am hopeful. Okay, it says agent stopped due to iteration limit or time limit. Strange, because for the exact same code it was working fine for main.py. Let me just quickly take a look at what's wrong. Obviously I'll have to look up the CrewAI docs to see if I'm missing something right now. So this time apparently it's working. I did a very basic change. I tried a bunch of different things. In fact, I went into the CrewAI library to see if something was wrong, and apparently it turns out there is some bug with the LangChain. So you can see we've imported LangChain OpenAI with chat OpenAI. So that's apparently causing the issue, but I was able to run this code if I use a local model. So if I go back to the top of the execution, you can see, do you want to use GPT? I just said no, and then enter the name or brand of the influencer you want to research, Goyashi, and then I'm using Llama 3.1 here, and apparently it seems to be working fine with that. So you can see these are the channels that it was able to find: the Instagram profile, the Twitter profile, the YouTube profile, and then the Medium profile, the LinkedIn profile, literally everything about the platform itself. So now when we actually look at this chat, you can see I should start by searching info directly and search the internet. I tried using the same input. I must stop using this action. I'll try something else instead. Let's continue with this process. It did the research, and then there was the output to the task, if I remember correctly. So action input was this. Now it's analyzing over last 24 hours, and then it's now looking for mention over the last 24 hours. Okay, then it was able to find number of mentions 5, breakdown by platform, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, top 5 most engaging posts or mentions. There was one from Snappy AI, and then there are a bunch of different links where it found the engagement, and then I think it was able to pass this output to the summarizer. The summarizer was able to do this, right? So sentiment analysis report for social media mentions about Goyashi. Overall sentiment distribution is positive, negative, neutral. 60% positive, 1 or 20% negative, neutral, and then 20% negative. So key positive themes or comments: excitement about rolling out new features on Twitter, interest in learning how to use AI Shorts Editor, appreciation for helpful resources on using hashtags and mentions on social medias. Then key negative themes: confusion about receiving notifications on Twitter without following any accounts. So notable changes in sentiment compared to previous periods and so on. So it did a fine job when it comes to the research itself, and this is the final report. So it is able to do some high level analysis, which is exactly what we wanted this agent to do. Now it's not much, and you can obviously use your own magic with this agent to fine tune this agent further, but I think in my opinion it did a fine job. And this was our second agent in the series of building agents for doing startup automation. So feel free to set this up for yourself. It's not very hard. As you saw, we just need to create agents, tasks, tools, and then assign those to the crew, and then the crew does all the execution. So let me know what you guys think of this, and let me know which agent you would want to see next. But I'll see you guys in the next one.